We spend pretty much our entire lives clicking, swiping, and streaming. But have you ever actually stopped to think about what's happening on the other side of that screen? What's the invisible engine that makes our digital world go round? I mean, think about it. You tap a button to order some food, you like a photo, you play a song, and the screen just reacts instantly. It honestly feels like magic, but it's not magic, it's engineering. So, what is that invisible chain of events that connects your single tap to a real world result? Because every single one of those auctions, and we're talking billions of them happening every single second around the globe, kicks off a super complex process. And here's the secret. Most of this isn't happening on your phone at all. Nope. It's happening in this massive, unseen network of servers, databases, and pure code, all working together perfectly. So that's what we're doing here today. We are pulling back the curtain on the back end. We're going to walk through the complete roadmap to understanding and even building this invisible world, all based on an amazing guide from Programming with Mosh. So how do you actually become an architect of this digital universe? Well, it really boils down to these four key stages. This is our map for the whole journey. First, you got to choose your main tool. Then you learn to think like a builder. After that, you master your materials, the data. And finally, you connect it all together to bring your creation to life. All right, let's dive into step one, choosing your language. This is huge. It's the absolute foundation of everything you're going to build. It's the language you'll use to write the instructions for the computers that power the internet. And you've definitely got options. These are some of the heavy hitters right here. Each one has its own vibe, its own strengths, and is trusted by some of the biggest companies you can think of. It might seem like a lot, but trust me, it gets way easier when you figure out what each one is really good for. And this is where it gets really interesting. Mosh recommends Python as a killer starting point. Why? Because its syntax, the grammar and spelling of the code, is just super clean and easy to read. It's the powerhouse behind apps like Instagram and Spotify. Then you've got Java, which is an absolute workhorse. It runs the massive, complicated systems for companies like Amazon. And JavaScript? Well, it's a little quirky, but it's got a superpower. It can run on both the front end, the part you see, and the back end. That makes you a full-stack developer, and it powers huge apps like Netflix and LinkedIn. Now, this is maybe the most important piece of advice you'll get. Don't fall into the trap of trying to learn a little bit of everything. It just doesn't work. Pick one language, go deep, and truly master it. Knowing one language inside and out is way more powerful than having a shallow understanding of five. Okay, so once you've picked your language, it's time to learn the core concepts that apply to all programming. This isn't about code anymore. This is about forging that developer's mindset. First up is Git. Okay, imagine you're writing a massive paper with a bunch of friends. How do you keep track of who changed what? And what if you need to go back to an older version because someone messed up? Well, that's exactly what Git does for code. It's non-negotiable for teamwork. All right, listen up because this one is huge. Mosh says you cannot skip this. See, learning to write code is one thing, but learning to solve problems efficiently is the real game. Data structures are just smart ways to organize information, and algorithms are like recipes for using that information. This is what lets you build apps that can handle millions of users without breaking a sweat. It's the difference between being just a coder and being a real computer scientist. So, if algorithms are recipes for data, think of design patterns as the architectural blueprints for your entire app. You wouldn't build a house without a plan, right? These are just proven, time-tested solutions to common problems. Learning them means you're not reinventing the wheel. You're standing on the shoulders of giants. Okay, you've got your language, you've got the logic. But where does all the information, all the user profiles, the photos, the product lists, where does it all actually live? Well, that brings us to our third stop, databases. Now, you've basically got two main families of databases. On one side, you have relational or SQL. Think of these like super organized Excel spreadsheets. Everything has a very strict structure, which is perfect for things that can't have errors, like banking or e-commerce. On the other side, you've got non-relational or NoSQL. This is more like a flexible digital filing cabinet. It's all about speed and scale, perfect for modern apps where the data is always changing. You don't have to be an expert in both, but you need to know which one to use and why. And here we are, the final piece of the puzzle. You've got the logic, and you've got the storage. So how do you connect it all to the outside world? How does the app on someone's phone actually talk to your backend? The answer is web frameworks. Honestly, trying to build a modern backend from scratch would be an absolute nightmare. A framework is like a starter kit. It's a pre-built foundation that handles all the boring standard stuff, like security and talking to the database, so you can focus on building the awesome, unique features of your application. And frameworks help you build one of the most critical parts of the backend, an API. The simplest way to think about an API is as the official messenger between the front end, the app you see, and the back end, the server you don't. It sets the rules for how they're allowed to talk to each other. So let's just walk through it. Your phone, the front end, needs to load your friend's latest photos. So it sends out a request, a little digital message. That message travels across the internet to a specific address where the API is waiting. The API is like a waiter at a restaurant. It takes your order, understands exactly what you want, and knows who to give it to in the kitchen, the backend. The backend then gets the order, zips over to the database to grab the right photos, and hands them back to the API. The API then hustles them right back to your phone, and boom, the photos pop up on your screen. And that entire round trip, it happens in milliseconds. So, the big question, how long does it take to learn all this stuff? Well, according to Masha's roadmap, if you're dedicated and you put in a few hours every day, you can get the skills you need for an entry-level back-end job in about 12 months. Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint, but it's totally achievable. And that's really it. From picking a language to mastering the core logic, commanding data, and finally building the connections, you now have the complete map to the invisible architecture that powers our entire digital world. Look, this isn't just about learning to code. It's about learning to create. It's about having the power to build the tools and the platforms that millions of people could use every single day. So the only real question left is, now that you